Something rotten in Denmark. No doubt, this pandemic, that's what we're talking about here, is quite odd. Lots of conflicting information going on here. We've got masks, we got cases going up, we have death rates that are just shooting up and up and up. Massive censorship is going on as well. Do you wonder what's up? I know I do. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Hi, I'm Jonathan Landsman, your host for Natural Health 365 Live. We do this show each and every day, Monday to Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's exactly when we start another one of these shows. It's all basically designed to help keep your immune system strong so that you will be able to protect your health. That's what we're all about here. But let's look at some of these peculiar things that definitely make me say today, something is rotten in Denmark. All right. Oh, by the way, if you're new to this show, type new in the comment section below. Let us know that this is your first broadcast, and we'll be sure to give you a special hello and welcome you to this community. And if you feel like this message is worthwhile to you, please do me a big favor and share this info with someone that you love. God knows we need more of this information going around and more people thinking about this stuff so that we can make intelligent decisions out there in the future. All right, so first let's talk about masks, right? Covering up the face. This is a big deal, and it's going to become bigger and bigger, I feel, and I'm sure you agree, in the next couple months as we deal with this pandemic. Back in March, only a few months ago, Dr. Anthony Fauci, supposedly our top infectious disease guy, he's been getting a lot of great press for sure. The media loves Dr. Fauci. He actually said, we don't need a mask. We do not need to wear a mask. Just relax, not important. But now we do. Completely changed point of view. Basically, he admitted that he lied to everybody. And I'll tell you what he said. He said, we did not want them, healthcare workers, this is a quote of his, that's what he meant. We did not want them to be without equipment they needed. So do you see my point? He deliberately then admits that he lied to the American public. You don't need to wear a mask. Really making it sound like each and every person doesn't need to wear one at all, just for the sake of something else that he had as an agenda. Why not just come right out and say it? We're not making enough masks. I'm very worried about our healthcare providers. We all need to wear a mask, but I'm worried that we won't have enough for the people that work in the hospitals. I would have had a lot more respect for him. Let's put aside the value of wearing a mask. I'm just saying about dealing with the issue. It just seems very odd that he literally admits he made up a story and told the American people, you don't need to wear a mask. And now it's the most important thing in the world. So who are we supposed to trust? So he even said they're not 100% effective, which they're not. Any logical person knows that there's no 100% protection with a mask, especially a cloth or any of these surgical masks with all the space on the side and the air goes in and people pull them on and off because they can't stand to have them over their nose and their mouth. They can't breathe well. It's extremely uncomfortable. They pull them off. They put them back on. I mean, come on. How many people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week are wearing something that completely seals everything around their face, covering their nose and their mouth, and never letting anything to get in except some sort of breathing, a little bit of air can kind of go through a mask? Nobody is doing that. Come on, let's get real. He even said that it's symbolic. He actually used the word symbolic to wearing a mask. And in May, 2 months later, he says, I want to make it. When he says, I want to make it, I put in parentheses here, wearing a mask. So he goes on to say in a quote, I want to make it be a symbol for people to see that that's the kind of thing you should be doing. He also said that wearing a mask shows respect for another person. On the surface, it sounds really nice. What's the problem, Jonathan? But this is a top infectious disease person. He's supposed to be the leader in public health in the United States. Everything that comes out of this guy's mouth shouldn't be symbols, show some respect of other people. That's a nice thing for a neighbor to say to somebody else, yes. But what about the science? This guy is always about science, science, science. What does science say about wearing a mask? I did a whole thing on masks before. We don't have to go over all of that. But I will pull out a fairly respected journal in medicine. It's called the New England Journal of Medicine. And here's their quote. "We know," he said, maybe, I think about it, not quite sure, we ought to check it out. We got to get some more evidence. No, the beginning of this quote is, "We know that wearing a mask outside of healthcare facilities offers little, if any, protection from infections. Public health authorities define a significant exposure to COVID-19 as face-to-face contact within 6 feet with a patient with symptomatic COVID-19 that is sustained for at least a few minutes, and some say more than 10 minutes or even 30 minutes. The chance of catching COVID-19 from a passing interaction in public space is therefore minimal. In many cases, the desire for widespread masking is a reflective reaction to anxiety over the pandemic." Do you notice that last sentence? Nothing to do with science, just sort of something we should do. And I think there's a big consensus about this, folks. Most people wearing a mask, when I ask the average person on the street, oh, it's to make someone else feel better. Businesses, they say to me quietly, one-on-one, oh, it's just to make people feel more calm, more at ease, like we're doing something good. But understand, on the surface, all that's a wonderful thing. But it's not based on science. The science doesn't justify wearing masks. And that's a hard thing to get into someone who just wants to follow orders. An expert in infectious disease like Dr. Fauci, jacket and a tie, he goes up in front of Congress, he says we should wear masks, puts a mask on his face, stands behind the president. That's it. Everybody follows orders. They follow the way that they're being told to behave. But nobody's asking the critical questions, and very few people are listening to those quotes. Multiple studies, not just the New England Journal of Medicine, who looked at many studies, but many others who have looked at many, many studies indicate that masks do not protect you against viruses. And then, of course, you hear these people going, what are you talking about? Doctors wear masks when they go into surgery and they're cutting people open and they have open wounds. They're covering their face and their nose, Jonathan. It's not true. Masks are extremely important. They're confusing concepts. Dripping, spitting, real big physical matter coming out of your mouth, drooling, not to be gross here, but like literally that coming out of your mouth and going into an open wound of a human being on a surgical, on a table. Wearing a mask is a really good idea. It stops that stuff from happening. But virus particles, microscopic, in the air that get transmitted out through air, breathing, right? Because they say breathing or just talking, not even spitting, not drooling on people, not kissing them, just these little fine particles that you can't see with the naked eye. They're going to drift out and they're going to go into somebody and they're going to make them very sick. There is no evidence in science that a mask covering the face blocks that from happening. That's the point that's really key. And on top of that, there's studies out there that show that the cloth mask, when you breathe and spit, whatever, cough, sneeze, coming back at you is a huge increase in the probability of you being reinfected by something that could make you sick. So on a lot of levels, it's a really unhealthy thing to do. But the narrative still goes. Cover your face and nose, right? Your mouth and your nose. Respect those people out there that you love. And if you don't do it, you must be an idiot. And there's no science to back this up at all. So here we go. Let's talk about cases. Keep in mind, the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, says, quote, most people have mild COVID-19 illnesses and can recover at home without medical care. Gee, I wonder why. How does that happen? I mean, forget the idea that most people never even read this quote. It's right on the CDC website. It's incredible. Most people have never heard what I just said. And then on top of that, wouldn't it be just great if they would explain how on earth that happens? Most people with mild COVID illnesses, they can recover at home without medical care? How on earth does that happen? Can anyone please help me? How does someone get sick with this deadly scourge that has ravaged the earth, killed all of these people, infected millions of people? How on earth does the CDC say that most people can recover at home without medical care? This thing is supposed to be like worse than the Spanish flu. All right, so I'm going to wait for an explanation on that one. I still haven't heard a good one. Not yet. Except for the one that I talk about. Maybe I'll mention it at the end. That's about the only one that they don't want to popularize at all. I'll leave you in suspense if you're not sure what I mean. So there's basically two tests when it comes to these cases, right? There's a viral and there's an antibody test. That's basically the two, right? The PCR test, okay, which is your viral testing, is only if you are infected and you have symptoms. Do you understand? The PCR test that is being given for COVID-19 is not for every person out there that feels totally fine. I should not go and get a PCR test. That would be stupid, right? It's stated on the CDC website. PCR testing is supposed to be for infected people that feel kind of crappy. Really simple, right? Okay. These tests, the PCR test, do we know what this is? This is the test. Testing little bits of genetic material, RNA, right? It was never meant, I'll repeat, this test was never designed to diagnose any disease. It's a tough one to let sink in if you're new to this information, but it's the truth. The CDC itself warns everyone. Really, to be honest with you, the CDC doesn't expect you and I to be reading it. It's really designed for the healthcare providers to be reading this. The CDC warns that there are a lot of inaccuracies with the PCR test. A lot. And they do not want it given to asymptomatic people. Be very clear. If you don't have any symptoms, you shouldn't take this test. Doesn't make any sense. There are and they go on to say, there are way too many false positives. Gee, I wonder why. In 1984, Kary Mullis. Do you know that name, people? Kary Mullis, who, again, I hope his soul is resting in peace. He passed away in the fall time of 2019. Kary Mullis invented the PCR test. He says, don't use it to diagnose any disease. This is the man who is an unbelievable biochemist who comes up with this PCR test to begin with. Says don't use it to diagnose disease, and that's all we do it for now. He also said, in fact, get this. He didn't say it, but this is just factual stuff. In the sequence, this is an 18-character primer sequence. I'm not going to get too technical with you. Found in the World Health Organization PCR testing protocol, okay, is what you get to amplify a PCR process in order to be detected and to designate as positive on a test result. You have to be able to see this 18-character sequence, this RNA, this snippet, if you will, has to be detected. Except here's the problem. That same exact 18-character sequence is also found in Homo sapiens chromosome 8. So basically what that means is just about any human being on Earth has the potential of testing positive for COVID-19. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I know what it sounds like. It sounds like I'm making a joke, but this is really true. Kary Mullis also once said something very interesting about his own profession. Get this one. Quote, scientists are doing an awful lot of damage to the world in the name of helping it. I don't mind attacking my own fraternity because I am ashamed of it. End quote. I thought that was mind-blowing for me. So what defines a case? Really quick, I've covered this before in the past as well. Anyone who is confirmed by taking a test, and also 15 to 17 plus more people who may have been in close proximity to that person that was confirmed, but they weren't even tested yet. Oh yeah, they call those people probable cases. And guess what? To wrap this whole thing up about cases going up and up and up, all of them are considered cases. Those that are confirmed, tested positive, forget about the fact that the tests are inaccurate, a lot of false positives. But now when they do the contact tracing and they know your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, your buddies, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, anyone who's been close to you, oh yeah, they're probable cases as well. Let's just chalk them up as cases as well. So it's no wonder that we're seeing a huge amount of cases, way beyond the people who are actually being tested. Now, we're not even mentioning all the mistakes in the testing that have come out in the last few weeks, all the fraud that exists. Reports are indicating clearly, lots of reports, not just one, that people are actually standing online, waiting online in their car, filling out the paperwork for the test. Then they go away. It's too much waiting around. They don't want to wait a half hour, an hour, so they leave. And then days later, they're getting a letter at home saying that they tested positive. But the problem is, they never got tested. How on earth is something like that happening unless there's either gross negligence or outright fraud involved? What about deaths? We can cover that real quick. Are they accurate? People dying with COVID-19. And that is a whole other topic for another video. Are people really dying of COVID-19? Or are they just dying with COVID-19? Well, I don't know. Why don't we look at back in March, just a few months ago, Dr. Deborah Birx, who's part of the White House Corona Task Force, right up there with Dr. Fauci? These are like the leaders in the United States as to our response, how we handle things, what's the correct protocols, and just being a real leader when it comes to all of this, right? Well, her quote was, "The intent is if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that. We are counting that as a death." So in other words, if you go to the hospital, God forbid, from a gunshot wound or a heart attack or a car accident, or you're dying of stage 4 cancer, and you are tested and confirmed to have had COVID-19, if, God forbid, you die, it's a COVID death. Has nothing to do with anything else. Your comorbidities, morbidly obese, diabetic for years and years, with infections in your lower legs and amputations to prove it. I mean, we're talking really serious cases here, folks. Not a little jittery from having a chocolate bar once. Okay? Hypertension, high blood pressure for years, taking lots of medications. You're elderly, 43 to 50+% of those that have actually died are much older individuals, worn out, run down, poor nutrition, really drugged up, lots of health issues, pneumonia, the regular flu virus, whatever may be going on with that individual, and then they die. Oh, if you had the infection of COVID-19 classified on you, that's it. Nothing else that I just said about that individual matters at all. None of that took their life. COVID-19 death. Simple. And that's exactly what the lead person said, that every healthcare provider, all the hospitals, all the doctors, all the administrators need to follow that rule. If you test them positive and anything else might have possibly taken their life, you are supposed to, the intention is to list that person as a COVID death. You know what makes me wonder? How many people this year died of pneumonia? Just pneumonia, right? Which happens every year. Tens of thousands of people die of the flu. Just the flu, no lockdown, no mask necessary, nothing else. How many people are dying of the flu? Only the flu now. Haven't heard one report on how many died in that whole season we just went past. Oh, now we're in the summer, and they're talking about the fall and the winter already, folks. If you think we've been through a lot already, wait till you see what happens this fall when it comes to the flu and COVID. The numbers are going to be off the chart, and it's going to be fear-mongering 2.0, starting, my guess, I would say in about 2 to 4 weeks, we are going to see things in this country that we have never seen before in terms of hype and fear-mongering about this disease. Okay, so let's move along and talk about censorship. Tons of it. I think you and I both get a sense that something's going on here. The narrative is being greatly controlled. And you know what? A lot of life-saving information is being kept from a lot of people. I always ask you to please share, but I know it's a drop in the bucket compared to what most people are hearing day to day, broadcasted all over the news. Such a limited amount of information. Dr. Andrew Saul, I don't know how many of you know him, talked quite a bit for years about the value of vitamins, but then specifically with COVID, the value of vitamin C. His Facebook page, his social media, completely censored when he started talking about it. Dr. Richard Cheng, a medical doctor who's over in Shanghai, China, out of there, that's where he was during this whole COVID crisis, but he's a medical doctor here in the United States. I had the great fortune of interviewing him while he was over in China. Talked quite a bit about the value of vitamin C, not from hearsay. He knows his buddies who are still in China, Chinese doctors who are actually clinically on the ground with Wuhan patients, very sick people, taking them into hospital, giving them large amounts of vitamin C, and helping these people to feel better. He actually did conversations with these docs and worked with them with these people. So what did he want to do? Tell the world, do videos. Boom, shut it down. Dr. Judy Mikovits, I'm sure you've heard that name, Plandemic, talking quite a bit about a lot of the shenanigans that are going on behind the scenes. A lot of people don't hear, and this woman is a top vaccine researcher with an amazing career at NIH. No problem with her at all until in her own personal professional life, she questioned and was very concerned about vaccines being contaminated with a retrovirus. She spoke up. One of her higher-ups was Dr. Fauci, and long story short, she was canned, threatened, told to shut up about it. Years have gone by now. She sees what's being played out here now. She talked about Dr. Fauci and her experiences with Dr. Fauci. She talked candidly about her experiences at the NIH and how they really operate in a documentary, Plandemic. Millions of views. And you know what happened? They took it down. No one's allowed to see it. So on YouTube, took it down. Facebook, take it down. If you're a Facebook user and you try to share that video, good luck. They'll probably remove your account for doing that, putting out false information. Dr. Rashid Buttar, down in South Carolina, I believe is where he's based out of. He talked a lot about COVID fraud, a lot of things that he was questioning. His own professional, as a physician, as a human being that cares in this country, he expressed his opinions. Last I checked, I thought we had freedom of speech, right? It's one of the foundational principles of the United States. So he spoke about it, just put out videos against a white wall, nothing fancy, had a camera on him. Millions of views he got, taken down, shut down. As soon as it got really, really popular, they just shut it down. Dr. David Brownstein, somebody who I've interviewed in the past, great medical doctor, really cares about his patients. You know what he did? He did some YouTube videos with some of his patients, several, talking about how they had scratchy throat, the coughing, the hard breathing, all this kind of COVID stuff. Okay, so he brought them in, he took care of them, he talked about his treatment protocol, a lot of natural things, nothing to do with remdesivir, nothing to do with intubation, nothing to do with going to a hospital. He just spoke about his successes with a lot of natural remedies that you and I fully know about. The vitamin D, all of this stuff, the zinc, selenium, all these things, you understand. So he did the videos. He was threatened by federal agencies, sent letters, and was forced in his own decision to take those videos down because they were threatening his medical career, folks. What would you do in that situation? Down the videos went. Now he's perfectly quiet and doesn't feel comfortable in speaking out. Is that right? Is there something rotten in Denmark here with some of the things that I've said? Does this bother you at all? Does any of this get to you at all? If it does, please make a comment. Tell me what it is that concerns you, because when you list it down below, other people are going to read it. Maybe, just maybe, some people watching this will then be sparked to maybe look into this themselves, because it sure as heck concerned me. And then finally, the last biggie was these 12 frontline doctors, real doctors with real medical practices. You know what they did? They said the 4-letter word. They said that they already have a cure for COVID, only based on their clinical practice. The people came in, they were sick, they took the protocol, they feel fine. What do you call that? Shouldn't more people know about that? And so this video that they put out, which was a press conference at the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., they stood there, all the doctors, one by one in front of the microphone, told their story, and I believe it was, well, don't hold me to it, but it was definitely millions of views, for sure. And then, of course, taken down. And the website that they had put up, gone. The web host said that they were in violation all of a sudden of their terms. Their website disappeared. Is that censorship, folks? Is there a good reason for that? Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai, right? He's from India, and now he runs one of the biggest tech companies in the world, right? Many other tech executives are systematically censoring information like what I've just described. And they've been like paraded out in front of everybody for you to watch. I'm sure you can get the video clips and watch what they have to say in front of Congress this past week, all looking into these tech giants and how they are manipulating, socially engineering society, allowing certain bits of information. That's okay. But if you talk about certain things like alternatives to injections, natural ways to feel better from COVID, woohoo! That is like the biggest taboo. You will be taken down if you are popular. So Pichai said of the frontline doctors, get this. He actually said this in front of Congress today. Here's a quote. The video, he's referring to the video and the information that those doctors relayed to the public, could cause harm in the real world. What the heck does that mean? Can you imagine for just one moment all the crap? This is a guy who's in charge of Google, who runs YouTube. Can you imagine all the videos that are out there right now that could potentially harm people? Why don't you just take it all down? Why just this one video of medical doctors explaining to people how they successfully helped people to feel better? And they did it time and again, not once in a blue moon. How can that be harmful? Their Facebook video got 17 million views in 8 hours. What did Facebook do? Boom, they took it down. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like that kind of information getting out, and his whole band of censors in there, in Facebook. Periscope, which is kind of in there, it's a Twitter live stream service, so it's run by Twitter. They had 1 million views, these frontline doctors. 1 million views. What happened to that Periscope? Boom, taken down. YouTube had 80,000 views in a very short period of time. It was shooting through the roof. What happened? They removed it. Why? Violating community guidelines. Ooh, so bad. Pichai also said that the video claims of a cure that doesn't meet CDC guidelines. This gives you the insight as to their state of mind. Hey, you don't follow what the CDC says. You're a bad person. This is like talking to a kindergarten person. This is the way they think of anyone, including doctors who are helping patients to feel better. You're just a bunch of fools. You're not to be heard at all because you don't follow CDC guidelines. So basically, the tech companies, all of them are the same. They follow the advice of corrupt, vaccine agenda-driven government agencies. All these government health agencies have one thing in common. Shots, shots, shots. For everything. Shingles, pneumonia. You name it. Measles, mumps, rubella. Just list anything. It's a shot. If you're for that, you're okay to be on the internet. If you suggest anything else, you're a raving lunatic. And if you think I'm exaggerating, go try to find this information on the internet. It's going to be really hard to find. The CDC says, quote, there are no drugs or other therapeutics presently approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration, another winner of an organization, to prevent or treat COVID-19. That, folks, is a lie. The NIH says, quote, vitamins and mineral supplements have been promoted for the treatment and prevention of respiratory viral infections. However, their role in treating COVID-19 are yet unproven. That, folks, is a lie. What about this proof? Early treatment, and this is the key, time and again, all the healthcare providers I have heard said early treatment. You don't feel well, a little trouble breathing's pretty serious, but I'm talking sniffles, sneezing, coughing, feeling a little run down. Boom! Come on, folks. You know when that happens in one day, something's wrong with you. Doctors in China, they use high amounts of vitamin C. Doctors in the U.S. are nebulizing with hydrogen peroxide. Doctors are using ozone therapy. Dr. Zelenko, Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, who I personally interviewed and who has actually spoken to Rudy Giuliani, and I know this information has gotten to the president's desk. The White House knows about this. Vladimir Zelenko is a New York physician that at the time I interviewed him, he had already taken care of 699 of his patients in New York, is using hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin very successfully. Dr. Bartlett has been nebulizing with budesonide, which is a very commonly used medication, and a nebulizer. Very successfully, he was using it. And there are many other doctors that were reporting success using glutathione and zinc and quercetin and vitamin D and vitamin A. The list goes on and on. Here's how I want to close out. Even if you have doubts, tell me something, because it certainly seems like it's rotten in Denmark here. Why wouldn't Dr. Birx, why wouldn't Dr. Fauci, why wouldn't the ever-caring Bill Gates and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, why wouldn't they be just a little curious and ask questions of all of these physicians? You know what? Have a roundtable discussion. Do a weekend retreat. You know how many of them would show up for something like that? Why not get them all together, even virtually if you don't want to be more than, closer than 6 feet apart? Do it virtually on Zoom or YouTube or Facebook Live. Get everybody together and discuss what they've gone through, what successes they've had, and then start developing a plan from that. Why isn't any of that being discussed at all? Why is it instead all of this information is being wiped off the internet? Something is wrong here, folks, and more people need to hear this kind of message. My question to you is very simple today. Who is the biggest liar in your opinion? Bill Gates, Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Birx as B, or C, one of these agencies that I've mentioned time and again, the CDC, World Health Organization, FDA, or D, maybe you have a suggestion as to who you feel is the biggest liar that you see in this whole pandemic. Please list it in the comment section below. I want to thank you very much for being with us today. If you feel like this message is valuable, please share it. And just as a reminder, the Natural Health 365 live broadcast that you're watching right now is available each and every day, Monday to Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We create another new show for you, all designed to help you to have a stronger immune system that will automatically help you to protect your health. Thank you very much for being with us today. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I look forward to talking to you again on Monday. Take care, everybody.